They didn't just invade Earth, they ridiculed it. In their first broadcast, the Galactic Council's envoy stood tall, encased in golden armor that shimmered under alien starlight. His voice, though translated, dripped with theatrical disdain. "We bring peace," he proclaimed, "by removing chaos. Your kind, your weapons, are obsolete echoes of violence. Lay them down. You will be spared the humiliation of resistance." On every screen, above every ruined city, those words repeated. And with each iteration, the Council's smirk grew deeper. Sergeant Elias Kane watched the broadcast play out on a flickering monitor buried in the depths of a scorched underground bunker. The walls around him groaned with age and neglect, lined with rusted tools and crates long forgotten by official inventory. Outside, Detroit smoldered under alien patrols, an ancient, industrial skeleton scorched with the precision of plasma strikes. A once thriving city reduced to a graveyard of ambition. Kane didn't flinch at the broadcast. He had seen worse than arrogance. He sat still, dressed in patched combat fatigues, his left arm encased in a makeshift sling from an old flag. Beneath the layers of grime and blood, his expression remained unreadable. Gray eyes, sharp and steady, flicked across the tactical map laid out before him. What remained of Earth's resistance was marked in red, not as strength, but as stubborn embers. One of those embers entered the room, a woman in her 30s, lean with muscle earned through survival. Emma Cho dropped a dented helmet onto the table and exhaled sharply. The Northern Patrol's predictable. Same path. Every 6 hours. No variation. "Arrogance breeds routine," Kane muttered, shifting his gaze to a stack of handwritten notes beside the map. "What about their armor?" "Light recon units. 6-foot profile. Hovercraft legs. Plating's tough against energy. Not built for slug throwers." A smirk touched the edge of his lips. "Then it's time we dust off the antiques." Emma stared for a moment, her jaw tightening. "You're serious?" "They think we're finished," he said, rising slowly. His leg, still recovering from a bone-deep wound, protested with every step. But they forgot one thing. Humans don't discard old tools. We hide them. We hoard them. And when the world turns upside down, we bring them back. In the next room, dimly lit and half-collapsed, a steel shipping container waited behind stacked crates. Kane dragged the lid open, revealing row upon row of gleaming weaponry preserved in grease. Firearms considered museum relics by alien tacticians. M2 Brownings, Barrett rifles, M1919S, weapons designed not to disarm, but to devastate. Emma whistled. "Where'd these come from?" "National Guard stockpile. Forgotten when orbital scans marked the depot non-critical. Guess they missed the part where humans value function over flash." From behind them, a voice spoke up, young, wiry, and carrying the sarcasm of someone too tired to care. Malik Voss leaned in the doorway, chewing a protein bar like it owed him money. "You planning to take down an alien walker with one of those dinosaur guns?" Kane nodded. "You're going to help me do it." Voss chuckled, then paused when he realized Kane wasn't joking. "Well, I guess if you're going to go extinct, might as well do it loud." "Not extinct," Kane said quietly. Angry. As the team gathered, their numbers modest, 12 in total, each one a patchwork of soldier, civilian, medic, mechanic, Kane outlined the plan. The next patrol was due to pass through Jefferson Avenue in 5 hours. A collapsed overpass would serve as the bottleneck. Emma and Ramos would wire explosive traps at the exits, while Kane and Voss manned the high ground with mounted Brownings. The aliens weren't expecting resistance. Not anymore. Their scanners read energy signatures, not the intentions behind cold steel. When a moment came, it came fast. Kane lay prone behind broken concrete. The Browning aimed down the boulevard like the finger of an ancient god. Below, the alien column advanced, 4 hovercrafts gliding low, their energy fields pulsing in rhythm. At the center, a transport walker loomed, its hull gleaming, its joints clicking with mechanical arrogance. He didn't count down. There was no speech. He pulled the trigger. The Browning roared, and the night came alive with fire. .50 caliber rounds screamed through the air, slicing into the lead hovercraft. It buckled and erupted, its carcass slamming into the side of a building. Before the second craft could pivot, Emma's charges detonated, tearing through alien armor with concussive fury. The walker attempted to retreat, too slow. Voss, on a secondary mount, fired round after round into the exposed joints of its leg. Sparks flew. The machine tipped, crashing onto the street with a howl of shredded metal. Alien soldiers spilled out, trying to form ranks, but it was chaos. Their armor, meant for plasma-based resistance, cracked and shattered under the force of high-velocity projectiles. Human gunfire echoed like thunder. Kane shifted his aim and tore through the flank. One by one, the invaders fell, not to advanced technology or strategic genius, but to old metal and human spite. 6 minutes later, the street was silent. Voss clambered down, bloodied but alive. He stared at the wreckage with wide eyes. That wasn't supposed to work. Emma stood beside a smoldering hovercraft, brushing soot from her face. Apparently nobody told them bullets still kill. Kane lowered the smoking barrel of the Browning and looked to the sky where the Council's surveillance satellites floated unseen. "Let them watch," he said. "Let them see exactly what happens when they mock a loaded weapon." No one celebrated. There was no cheering, no high fives. Just the quiet, grim satisfaction of survival and retaliation. They had won a battle. Nothing more. But it was enough. In the silence that followed, Kane walked to the center of the street and picked up an alien banner that had survived the ambush. Burn on the edges, the Council's symbol warped and broken. He dragged it through the dirt and planted the barrel of the Browning through its center. As the wind picked up and carried the sound of burning metal into the sky, Kane turned to his team. "This isn't about victory," he said. "It's about the message." From a damaged communications rig inside the bunker, the footage was sent. Across the galaxy, screens flickered. The invaders watched Earth's response. And for the first time, their laughter died. Smoke still clung to the ruined street like a second skin. Kane crouched beside the melted husk of the alien troop carrier, his eyes scanning the blackened horizon as the last ember crackled out. The machine gun sat beside him, the barrel warped from heat, the belt empty. He didn't speak. He simply watched the sky, waiting for the retaliation he knew would come. The others moved with practiced rhythm. Voss dragged alien corpses into the shadows while Emma placed new charges along the street, masking their work under ash and broken concrete. Ramos treated a charred wound on his own thigh without complaint, eyes flicking nervously to the distant skyline. They were quiet, not out of fear but focus. The first blow had landed. That changed everything. "They'll send more," Ramos said eventually, breaking the silence. Kane nodded, rising. "And they'll expect us to hide." "But we're not," Voss added, grinning with a cracked tooth. "We're hunting." News of the ambush didn't just travel through alien command. It spilled across frequencies, intercepted by underground cells still scattered across Earth. Voices that had gone silent whispered again. Hidden radios clicked to life. The footage was grainy, but unmistakable. Alien tech reduced to fire and smoke by the same tools once displayed in Earth museums. In orbit, General Threx slammed his clawed hand on the hollow table. Red markers blinked across the map of Detroit's ruins. He zoomed in on the intersection Kane had fought from. "Ballistic weaponry," he growled. "Slug-based. Ancient. They've adapted," one of his lieutenants hissed, antennae twitching. "No," Threx corrected. "They've remembered. The Council's consensus had been clear. Earth would surrender within weeks. Its digital systems, satellites, and power grids had been disabled within days of first contact. Cities toppled, military resistance dissolved, and the humans were pushed into ruin. Yet now, without satellites, without drones, without plasma, they were winning skirmishes. That wasn't strategy. That was something else. "Send reinforcements," Threx ordered. "Crush the insurgents before they become a symbol." Down on Earth, Kane's team didn't wait for the sky to darken. They moved swiftly through sewers and skeletal buildings, navigating by memory and instinct. Their next target was a comms relay the aliens used to coordinate orbital strikes. Small, guarded, but crucial. As they approached, Emma motioned them to a stop. She peered through shattered glass into the station courtyard. 2 sentries, light armor. 1 tower operator. No drones. Either they're underestimating us again, or it's bait, Voss muttered, shouldering his launcher. Kane studied the layout. Minimal cover. High ground possible from the collapsed hospital wing nearby. He turned to Ramos. You take overwatch. Voss, back entrance. Emma, delay charges on the tower legs. And you? She asked. I'll walk in the front. Before anyone could object, he was already moving. His boots crunched glass as he entered the open courtyard, slow and deliberate. The alien sentries turned, confusion written across their shimmering facial ridges. Kane didn't fire. He raised his hands and tossed a bloodied alien helmet at their feet. They looked down. The one on the left bent slightly, and then everything exploded. Ramos's shot dropped the tower guard. Voss fired a grenade into the sentries before they could recover. Kane rolled for cover as Emma's charges detonated at the tower's base, sending steel and alien tech crashing down in a spray of fire and shrieking metal. 3 minutes. That's how long the fight lasted. As the smoke cleared, Kane crouched beside the wrecked console, picking through the remains for anything useful. Emma stepped up beside him, brushing dust from her face. You really just walked up to them? He shrugged. They expected cowards. Gave them noise instead. They're going to hit back harder. Good. It wasn't defiance for its own sake. Every strike served a purpose. Not just tactical, but psychological. Fear was universal. The aliens had relied on intimidation, on spectacle, on domination. Now Earth was doing the same, using ancient tools to invoke primal terror. Elsewhere, other cells were waking up. A group in Mexico broadcast the image of a destroyed alien crawler next to a salvaged Sherman tank. In Uganda, villagers downed a skimmer with a World War I Vickers gun mounted on a truck bed. Even children were being taught how to jam alien bioscanners with crushed quartz and gasoline vapors. The age of submission was cracking. Alien troops began to panic in minor outposts. Squads hesitated before entering dense cities. They flinched at strange noises. Rumors spread of bullets that screamed, of weapons that tore through plasma fields, of humans that wouldn't die. General Threx noticed. Deploy Predator-class suppressors, he barked in the war chamber. But sir, those are... I said deploy. From orbit, sleek, black Predator drones descended, machines that didn't rely on plasma, but infrared and ultrasonic mapping. Built for extinction. Silent, fast, and merciless. Kane's team reached their fallback site just as night fell, an underground metro tunneled 2 levels below the surface. They lit no fires, shared rations in silence. Voss cleaned his rifle with almost reverent care. They'll escalate soon. They already have, Ramos said, nodding toward the distant hum in the air. Predator drones. I saw one shadow us earlier. We hold position. Kane shook his head. No, we go louder. Emma raised a brow. You want them to find us? I want them to think they did. He spread out a dusty map, lines drawn in charcoal and blood. They're used to linear. Predictable. We bait them with old noise, engine heat, motion signatures, and hit from behind. It's suicide, Ramos muttered. Not if they don't understand the rules. The plan formed like fire from coals. They would use dummy heat signatures, running generators from abandoned vehicles, simulated footsteps using air compressors, lure the Predator drones into the underground maintenance tunnels, then collapse the structure with shaped explosives, trapping them below. Earth couldn't out-tech them. But Earth didn't have to. The night passed with no dreams. Sleep was light, fragmented. Kane sat awake, watching the blinking indicator on his watch. At exactly 0400, the bait sites went live, and the hunters came. Predator drones glided silently into the ruins, scanning for movement. They found it, exactly where Kane wanted them to. 2 entered the underground site, flashing warning lights and prepping kill protocols. Then the walls came down. The blast was deafening. Dust and rocks swallowed the machines whole. When it cleared, all that remained was mangled steel and silence. Kane stood at the edge of the crater, breathing hard. The others emerged behind him, half stunned by the success. No words were needed. Somewhere, high above, General Threx stared at his monitors. The feed had cut out. No response from his elite units. He leaned forward, voice low. They don't fear us anymore. The thought spread through the command staff like poison. 100 species across the stars watched the footage. No longer was Earth a helpless world under occupation. It had become something else. A symbol. Kane watched the sun rise through a shattered tunnel grate. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. The war was still far from over. But now, they weren't just surviving. They were winning. The rain fell in sheets, thick and cold, as if the sky itself sought to drown the war. Beneath the clouds, Kane stood ankle-deep in muddy water, staring out at what was left of the south wall. Their stronghold, Fort Edison, as they'd started calling it, had been a half-collapsed sports arena they'd reinforced with salvaged steel, sandbags, and sheer defiance. Now, that wall was burning. The first wave had come without warning, plasma artillery from orbit that slammed into their perimeter like falling gods. The second wave had been worse. Infantry units twice the size of previous patrols, with heavier armor and silent discipline. No taunts, no theatrics, just cold extermination. The aliens had stopped laughing. Now, they were hunting. Kane wiped grime from his face, the sting of smoke clinging to every breath. Emma was behind him, checking the explosive charges they'd wired into the entry corridors. Her hands moved quickly, but with less certainty than usual. Voss, crouched behind an overturned vehicle, adjusted his sights again and again, as if waiting for the perfect shot that might never come. Ramos had already triaged 3 fighters, their blood pooling beneath the stadium bleachers. "They've breached the outer checkpoint," came a voice over the shortwave. "How long until they hit the inner gate?" Kane asked. "For minutes. Maybe less." He nodded, grabbing his rifle. There were no speeches this time, no battle cries. Everyone knew. This wasn't a fight to win. It was a fight to hurt them. The entrance tunnel was narrow, deliberately so, flanked by collapsed walls, rigged with motion-triggered charges and overlapping fire zones. A kill box. Emma crouched beside the detonator, sweat glistening under the faint emergency lights. Her lips moved silently, counting. The first shape appeared, not lumbering like before, but fast, calculated. An elite striker unit, its limbs built for war, sensors sweeping in eerie synchronization. Behind it, more poured in, disciplined, silent, unrelenting. Emma hit the switch. The explosion was thunder and fire, shaking the bones of the structure. Walls caved in, raining metal and debris. Half the corridor vanished in flame. When the smoke cleared, 3 of the invaders were down, but more kept coming. Their armor was scorched, but they advanced with inhuman determination. Kane opened fire. The old weapon screamed again. M2S mounted on railings. Marksmen behind steel. Every round carved through the air like a verdict. Alien blood sprayed in arcs, neon and raw. But they didn't stop. One by one, humans were falling. A mechanic turned rifleman took a bolt to the throat. A girl barely old enough to shave was flung backward by kinetic force. Ramos pulled bodies from the path, hands soaked in blood, never pausing. "Reload!" Voss shouted. Kane ducked behind cover, feeding a new belt into the Browning. His fingers moved by instinct now. He didn't think about survival. He thought about damage. Every second they held the corridor was another second Earth stood undefeated. Then the inner wall cracked, not from enemy fire, but from within. A massive alien form emerged, twice the size of any they'd seen. Built like a siege beast, plated in black metal, eyes glowing with a sickly hue. It didn't speak. It didn't roar. It just walked forward, absorbing gunfire like rain. Emma looked at Kane, the expression on her face a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "We don't have anything that can stop that." Kane stood slowly, lifting the last satchel charge from the weapons cache. "We do, but it's not staying here." She understood instantly. "You'll never make it back." "I'm not planning to." Before she could argue, he was already moving, dodging debris, ducking under falling beams, sprinting toward the advancing giant. The alien raised one arm, plasma weapon humming. Kane dove, rolled, came up firing. The rounds did nothing. The charge would. He vaulted a collapsed section of floor, landing within meters of the creature. It raised its arm to finish him, and Kane shoved the charge beneath its chest plate. He didn't wait to die. He turned and ran. Behind him, the charge exploded, ripping through the creature's core in a shockwave of fire and shattered bone metal. Kane was flung forward, slammed into a wall. Everything went white. Silence. Then, noise returned. A low roar, echoing through the stadium. The alien troops had stopped. Confused. Their war beast was gone. Some hesitated. Others retreated. The line held. Kane coughed, blood in his mouth, ribs broken. He blinked until Emma's face came into focus. She was dragging him back, yelling something he couldn't hear. Around them, others were shouting, shooting, surviving. The push had stopped. They hadn't won, but they hadn't lost. And for Earth, that was enough. Hours passed before the quiet returned. Fort Edison was mostly rubble now. They had only 20 fighters left who could still stand. The aliens had pulled back, reorganizing. They'd be back. Stronger. Smarter. But something had shifted. That night, a human signal hijacked the Council's secure frequency. The screen flickered, distorted. Then footage played. Alien troops falling. Their war beast exploding. Human rifles flashing in the dark. Kane's face appeared at the end, bruised and bloodied. He didn't say much. They mocked our guns, he said. Now they fear the sound. Across the galaxy, millions watched in silence. The war wasn't over. It had just begun. The smoke still hung like ghosts over what had once been Fort Edison. Now, it was little more than shattered concrete and blackened metal bones. The stench of plasma scorches and burned flesh refused to fade. Yet amid the ruins, there was movement. Life. Human life. Kane limped through the rubble-strewn corridors, his ribs bound with gauze and scavenged polymer wrap. Every breath was a reminder that he was still alive. The pain was sharp, but bearable. Survivable. Ramos had said he shouldn't be walking yet, but Kane knew better. He had to move. The war hadn't ended. It had simply changed. Children helped sort spent shell casings beside bloodied medics. Emma was inspecting the last intact generator, her hands slick with oil, jaw clenched in determination. Voss stood on the outer ledge of the arena's remains, sniper rifle in hand, watching the distant skyline where the aliens had vanished 2 days ago. They had pulled back, yes, but no one trusted silence from the enemy. From a collapsed stairwell, Ramos emerged carrying a small radio unit. He placed it on a makeshift table fashioned from broken doors and rebar. "We got a ping," he said, glancing at Kane. "One of the resistance cells in Europe. They're alive." Kane nodded slowly. "And watching? Everyone is." They saw what happened here. The footage from a battle had spread faster than any council transmission ever had. Across the stars, colonies and species once allied with the Galactic Council began to question the narrative. These weren't barbarians. They weren't primitives. They were survivors. Warriors. And they fought with such brutal simplicity that it terrified even the most advanced empires. Reports trickled in. Alien patrols withdrawing from dense cities. Minor mutinies in planetary garrisons. Debates erupting within the Council over why a species with inferior technology had managed to halt an occupation force. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it had. "Any word from command?" Emma asked without looking up from the generator. "There is no command," Kane said, his voice even. "Just us." "Then who's running this war?" "We are." Emma stopped tightening the valve and turned. "So what's next?" Kane looked past her, out to the fractured skyline, to the distant fires still burning in the east. "We take it back. One city at a time." The plan was reckless. The kind that only works when desperation drowns logic. But it had weight now, momentum. Fort Edison had been a message. Not of victory, but of refusal. Earth would not die quietly. It would not go extinct with bowed heads. By dawn, the team was already on the move. Smaller squads had been forming, splinters of resistance linked by crude radio signals and shared scars. They moved across the old train lines, underground highways, through forests burned into black skeletons. Everywhere they went, the sound of gunfire began to echo once again, not in fear, but in defiance. In South America, ancient revolvers and shotguns reappeared in guerrilla ambushes. In Japan, katanas dulled with age were sharpened again, paired with captured plasma cores to forge hybrid weapons. In Australia, old tanks restored from museums crushed alien walkers on open fields. Across the globe, humanity's so-called primitive weapons turned into sacred relics of vengeance. The aliens responded with overwhelming force, but something had changed in them, too. The cold precision began to crack. Their formations became cautious, their patrols twitchy. The soldiers who once marched in arrogant lines now moved with hesitation, their eyes searching the shadows for the sound of a bolt sliding home. On the 17th day, a galactic transport ship crashed outside Paris. Not because it was shot down, but because its own crew revolted. A young alien engineer, horrified by what he'd seen done to Earth, had sabotaged the engines mid-flight. He didn't survive, but his final transmission went viral. I've seen the humans bleed and still charge. I've seen them fall and get back up with fire in their eyes. You say they're lesser. I say they're terrifying. I will not help wipe them out. Kane heard the broadcast in a broken shelter beneath an old metro tunnel. It didn't surprise him. Fear, once sown, had taken root in the enemy. As the days passed, the council began pulling back. Not just from Earth, but from the public eye. Their voice, once dominant across the stars, was now stuttering, defensive. They sent diplomats to negotiate. Apologies wrapped in threats. Kane watched the message play across a half-broken holoscreen. We did not understand your species. Let us correct our mistake. Emma scoffed, sitting beside him, wrapping fresh gauze around her wrist. They understand now. That's the problem. Kane didn't reply. He didn't need to. The silence between them was full of shared memory. What they'd lost, what they'd taken back. In the following weeks, the resistance turned into an offensive. With every liberated zone came more fighters. Kane became a symbol. Not a general, but a spark. Wherever he went, battles turned. Morale soared. The man who refused to die at Fort Edison became the ghost that haunted alien transmissions. And yet, he never smiled in victory. Not once. The war wound down not with a final battle, but a slow bleed. The last alien cruiser left Earth's atmosphere a month after the Paris sabotage. They didn't declare defeat. They didn't sign anything. They just left. The skies returned to silence. Years passed. On the 3rd anniversary of the last withdrawal, Kane stood alone on a hill overlooking the rebuilt capital. His body bore the weight of everything. The shrapnel, the surgeries, the friends buried beneath ruined stone. A memorial stood behind him, etched with no names, only a sentence. We were called primitive. Then we taught them fear. Boss arrived quietly, carrying 2 mugs of bitter coffee. Emma says you still haven't given a speech. Kane took the cup. Not much to say. They'd listen. Kane turned his eyes to the horizon. Children ran through grass below, laughing. Buildings stood straight again. Flags fluttered in the wind. A world once broken was healing. They already know, he said. He set the mug down, walked to the edge of the hill, and placed something on the earth. A dented Browning receiver. The same one they'd used at Fort Edison. Silent now. Cold, but eternal. He stepped back and saluted. The camera drones recorded in silence. No music, no words, just the image of a soldier honoring the weapon that saved a world. Across the galaxy, the footage played. In places still loyal to the Council, it was censored. In others, it sparked whispers of rebellion. But in the dark corners of alien command rooms, they played the sound of that old Earth gunfire on loop. Not for tactics, but as a warning. Primitive, they had called it. Until it fired.